Beginning. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Today is Thursday, August 19th, and you have logged in to participate in today's webinar on understanding the SBA Non-Manufacturers Rule. We're really excited to bring this topic to you today. My name is Shonda Harris. I'm a business opportunity specialist, a BOS, with the Columbus District Office of the Small Business Administration, and really excited that we're able to bring this webinar today to you in collaboration with our partners at the Ohio University PTAC. So if you are new to government contracting, you're a seasoned government contractor, or you've maybe just going into doing business at the federal level, today's workshop, I think you'll find a lot of benefit. So regardless of what stage you're at in your government contracting journey, the PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Center, is a wonderful and great resource that can help small businesses at any stage of their journey, from beginning, pre-solicitation to the very end at post-award. So to give you a little bit more information about the PTACs before we get started, we'd like to welcome Sharon Hopkins, who is the director of the Ohio University PTAC. Sharon?
Thank you, Shonda. Good morning, everyone. The Procurement Technical Assistance Center is a program that is brought to Ohio businesses through the Department of Defense, specifically right now the Defense Logistics Agency, the Ohio Department of Development, and then Ohio University offers up matching funds to provide the services that I will tell you about here in a minute. The mission of the PTAC is to increase small business participation in government purchasing. So we don't really help with grants and we don't help with business, but we help you learn and work with government agencies so that you can sell your product or service. We partner with SBA on an ongoing basis to offer trainings for our client database, or our client database, as well as new businesses that are out there that may find out about us, or businesses that SBA are aware of and work with. The scope of our services include helping you look at federal, state, and local purchasing opportunities. All entities in government buy something, so we help you consider, utilizing your particular service or product, and we help you consider which agencies might buy your product. Then we help you market to that or those agencies. One of the things we do to help you market is to help you develop a capability statement, which is really just a snapshot of your business and kind of like a resume. It talks to government specifically with coding and that kind of thing. So we help you get that completed. We help you register at the appropriate places depending on what agencies we've identified with you that you want to market to. And then we also look at any set-aside opportunities and programs that you might qualify for, and we can walk you through the registration. Once we get you registered and you've marketed and you found some opportunities you're interested in, we also can help you walk through a solicitation package and look over your proposal, give you advice, give you pointers, and teach you how to reach out to those government procurement officers. So, and doing all of that and finding the opportunities, we also have a bid match system. So we help you by utilizing keywords and coding. We match you against what the government is buying, especially the federal government. That's on a daily basis. And that kind of gives you also a look at who's buying, what agencies are buying, if, so you can kind of make sure you're actually marketing to the correct agency. So those are our basic services, and all of our services are free to Ohio businesses. The OUP TAC actually has offices in the Akron, Athens, Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland, Dayton, Kirtland, and Pickerington areas. So if you are not currently a PTAC client and wish to be, you can go to our PTAC website, and it is ptac.ohio.edu. And there's a tab for new client registration. Click that tab, fill out a short application, and that'll put you in our system. And somebody, one of our offices that closest to you, will reach out to you. If you happen to be in another part of the state, there on our website, on that exact same website, you can also find the offices that are located either in Northwest Ohio at Road State Community College, over in the Youngstown area at YSU, and then down at South Point. So you can also get to any of those as well. So welcome, and we hope you learn a lot today. And Shonda, I will turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Sharon. We are grateful to work with such wonderful partners with our OUP TAC. They're a great wealth and a resource of information. So if you're a small business that's participating today, if you're a manufacturer, products, widgets, or parts, and you hear something and maybe you need to get a better understanding, please follow up with the PTACs and they can assist you. A few housekeeping things before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded. And so once we finish, we will send out the link to the recording. It will be posted on the PTAC site. Today's webinar, as well as all of the other webinars that we have been doing throughout this fiscal year, are posted on the PTAC site. So you can always go back and reference those great resources that you can have access to at any time. Also, we do ask that you keep your mics muted during the presentation. And also, if you can, we do ask if you can turn off your cameras unless you are presenting, so that we just give courtesy to our presenter. And then also, if you do have questions, I believe our presenter at some point, if you do have questions, you can go ahead and type those into the chat, and we'll try to pose those to the presenter at a feasible time and then allow her to address them. So without further ado, today's webinar, our presenter is Carol Hulme, and actually she's an attorney at our SBA headquarters. We're grateful that she was able to join us today. So Ms. Carol Hulme started her career as the mortgage division attorney for the Georgia Department of Banking and Finance, focusing on predatory lending and mortgage fraud. Ms. Hulme has been with SBA since 2007, starting as an attorney in the National Guarantee Center before joining the Office of Government Contracting in 2018 to work in the non-manufacturing department. So please, without further ado, we'd like to welcome Ms. Hulme. Thank you, and you can go ahead from here.
Good morning, and thank you for having me speak today on the program. So this is going to be an overview of the non-manufacturer rule. And first of all, we're going to go into a definition and understanding of the rule. Then we'll talk about how it applies, and then the two different types of waivers. At any time that you feel the need to ask questions, please, stop me and let me address them. That's fine too. If we can have a conversation, that's even better.
Carol?
Yes?
Can you put your presentation in presentation mode, so we can see the full screen, on the full screen?
Oh dear, okay. Let's see, how do I do that?
Like you did the other day on our practice run.
Oh, start from the beginning. Which one was it? Oh.
That's okay. You can go ahead.
Sorry.
No worries.
Okay. Well, the purpose of the manufacturer rule is to allow a small business that doesn't manufacture a product to provide that product to the federal government. And in order to do this as a non-manufacturer, because that's what it is, it doesn't manufacture the product, the small business has to meet 4 requirements. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. And these are the 4 requirements. The small business can't exceed 500 employees. That's your size standard. And you must be primarily engaged in this, in a retail or wholesale of the product. You normally engage in these activities for these items. And this is tricky because you must take ownership of the items, but ownership differs according to industry, what could constitute ownership. And you must be supplying the product of another small business. Why the small business wouldn't provide it itself, we don't know. But if that's not the case and you cannot get the product from another small business and you have to go to a large manufacturer, that is when waivers or exemptions to the non-manufacturer rule apply. So, go to the next slide. So the non-manufacturer rule applies to general small businesses above the simplified acquisition threshold. So that's 250. It applies to the socio-economic categories, women-owned small businesses, service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses, hub zones, above the micro-purchase threshold. So that's when you would need to get this waiver again. And again, this only applies to goods and products, not to services. And so you'll see the NAICS codes that will show these are the manufacturing NAICS codes, 31 through 33.
Carol, this is Jill. We have a question in the chat.
Sure.
Can a non-manufacturer product be a service, such as IT services?
We don't do services. It does not apply to services, but it does apply to software and information technology value-added resellers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, just stress it is limited to goods, products, not services. Okay, so there are 2 types of waivers. We have individual waivers and class waivers. The individual waivers can only be requested by contracting officers, whereas anyone can request a class waiver. And the standard for granting individual waivers, so we'll go over this. Once contacted by a contracting officer, we'll make it clear that it applies to that one specific individual solicitation and for the specific items that are mentioned in the waiver when it's granted. And you can only get an individual waiver after it has been determined that there are no small business manufacturers that can reasonably be expected to supply the product meeting the specifications of the solicitation. Now, that could be because the contracting officer has found the small business can't make the quantity required within the time frame required, or it's missing some salient characteristic. Their product doesn't meet the needs of the federal government. Once that has been determined, an individual waiver will be granted for that contract. What's interesting is it appears contracting officers are somewhat reluctant to request the individual waiver. So I've provided a list, and I send it out to contracting officers quite often to show that it's not an onerous process. Right here, you'll see this is a list of information I need in order to assess the application and grant the waiver. If you're interested in getting a contract, you see the request for information, or as early as you can find out about a potential contract coming out, you may want to say, would you put this aside? I'm a non-manufacturer. You can ask the contracting officer to apply for a waiver and provide them this list of information that they need to submit to me to get the waiver. And I think that makes it quite easy once the contracting officer feels they just basically have to go down the list and just kind of fill in the blanks. And in that way, they can set it aside so that a small business can provide the product of a large business. Any questions? Okay, I'll go to the next one. And the contracting officers have to make it clear, they have to put the public on notice that a waiver does exist for the solicitation. And if they acquire a waiver after the solicitation is posted, they can still go ahead with the waiver as long as they give additional time for others, for everybody, the public, to be aware of the existence of the waiver. And that was a recent update to the regulations. And when the contracting officers are doing multi-item procurements, which could be quite extensive, it's not necessary for them to get a waiver for each and every item. It just has to be 50% of the value of the contract has to be manufactured by small businesses, and you can go into this in more detail, and it's a little complex, and it applies to contracting officers only. But if you have 50% of the total estimated contract value is from a large business, you need to get a waiver for the remaining 50%. Just to bring it in compliance with that. The class waivers may be of more interest to this audience because anyone can request a class waiver for a product. It has the capability of supplying to the federal government, but that it does not manufacture and that it obtains from a large business. Now, I'm so sorry about this slide here.
I can see it, it's okay.
The standard for class waivers. So a class waiver will be issued after there's a determination made that there are no small businesses that are available to participate in the federal marketplace for those products. And the class of products will be defined by the NAICS industry number and a detailed description of the product that is subject to the class waiver. And available to participate in the federal marketplace means that a small business must not have applied for, been awarded, performed a government contract for that product within the last 2 years. If we find that there's been even one contract out there, a class waiver cannot be issued. And again, anyone can apply for a class waiver. And the request for a class waiver, the submission, you have to provide a detailed description of the product, as well as all efforts made to locate small business manufacturers of those products. Okay. Unlike the individual waivers, which apply just to a specific solicitation, the class waiver could be used for many, many contracts, and it doesn't, and there's no time limitation. However, if someone comes forward, either we find it on our own or someone refers, say, hey, we make this product, we'll have to terminate that class waiver. And again, you can see the link at the bottom. That will take you right to the list of the existing class waivers. And questions?
I don't see any right now.
Oh. Anything, individual waivers? Anyone interested in class waivers?
I would say now's the time, since we have you on the webinar. It can be a very confusing topic.
Yeah, and it's useful. This allows the small businesses, it increases the participation in federal procurement, and it's a very little known program, which leads people to think it's a lot more complicated than it is. It's more complicated for the contracting officers, but for the general public, if you have a business you want to promote this, you may be interested in applying for a class waiver.
About how long does it usually take to get one processed, or how would a small business figure out that they need one, and so kind of how do they contact you?
Okay, what the NMR mailbox, which is, you know what, it's not on here, but we have on our website the NMR mailbox.
Is it just, I can put it in the chat. It's
Okay.
NMR mailbox.
Yes, NMR waivers, or Caroline -Hume at SBA.gov.
Okay, we just got a question. Can consulting services, being both management and policy realms, be considered as a non-manufacturer role? If not, what would be necessary steps to working with the SBA?
Well, as they're not goods or products, and that would fall into services, it wouldn't fall within the NMR. And I would advise you just to contact your local PTACs or whoever to see how they could assist you in breaking in for those roles.
Yeah, and it's again for products. And so it's our manufacturers and our distributors of manufactured parts that would benefit the most from this program.
The only ones that would.
The only ones, yeah, right. The only ones that would benefit.
Yes, that's true. So
Okay.
it's totally for manufacturing.
Okay, please post the prior URL link in the chat. Okay. Not sure which one you're referring to. Okay, can we send out the slide deck? Yes. Can you clarify software products versus software subscriptions versus online software?
The software product would be the product that's being placed in, they're usually used in the medical fields, VAs, medical centers, to assist with the whatever equipment they're using. The services, the maintenance, that would fall under services. So wouldn't be covered.
Yeah, to go back 3 slides.
Yeah, hold on. I'm coming back. It's not,
The list of existing waivers.
okay. So because you're not actually purchasing, and I believe they think the subscription is more like a rental and not a purchase.
He says we passed it. Is that Michael Horn? It probably, do you know, is it,
Do you see it?
you said we passed it.
That's
I
the
see
NAICS
it.
codes.
Yeah, you're on slide 7. Was
Okay. I thought this was a question concerning subscription software. No.
yes, it was, and I apologize. We also got a request to go back to the list of existing waivers, like the URL, how to access that.
Oh, that's under the class waivers.
I apologize, Carol.
Oh, I'm working this out myself. So you'll see that at the bottom. That was recently updated, I would say, well, not that recently, late last year. So it's everything on there is current.
Okay.
And if you have a
Bingo.
question, if you have a question about whether your product would fall within a class waiver that's listed, feel free to reach out to me and I can work with you to determine whether that would apply.
Oh, can we copy and paste that and put it in the chat?
I'll
Yeah.
see if I can get it, Jill, and I'll post it.
Okay, and
And this is all, I'm sorry.
they would like to go back to the initial question about software subscriptions. So clarify about software products versus software subscriptions versus online software.
Okay, because with the subscriptions and the remote software, it's not actually purchasing a good, so that's excluded. As opposed to software products that they're going to be used to facilitate maybe equipment or whatever uses that they've purchased and they own, the agency plans to purchase and keep. That's part of the transaction would be a good. The subscription remote software would be more considered a rental and not a purchase of a product.
Here's.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions about that one because they seem to go hand in hand.
Here's another question. Hi, Carol. Which of the class waiver can a firm with IT support service capabilities apply for? I don't think because it's a service. And I certainly don't want to answer for you, but.
Unfortunately, no, because the waivers are limited to providing products and goods, not services. They've excluded that from the NMR.
Okay, everyone, Shonda has put the link in the chat. It looks like Sharon has as well. Okay. All right, do we have any other questions at this time? Sometimes it's good to have a presentation on figuring out what doesn't pertain to your business as well. But we are really focusing on manufacturers for this particular presentation. And distributor of parts, right? To see when the non-manufacturer rule would apply.
And allow a distributor to provide it, right, to apply for the solicitation. And again, you know, if you do have a good or a product that you can get from a large manufacturer, it doesn't hurt to contact the agency and let them know the existence of the NMR, provide that list of required information, letting them know that's all they need to provide in order to get the waiver, so they'll be able to set it aside.
Does this apply only to NAICS codes 31 through 33?
Right, the manufacturing NAICS codes, as well as the other two that were later added for the software.
Okay. Well, that seems to be all the questions that we currently have.
Carol,
Yes, yes.
could we, since we have a little bit of time, early on in your slide, you talked about what it applies to as far as being under the simplified acquisition threshold, and then for micro purchases, and just don't want to assume, because we typically have a lot of companies that are at different stages, and maybe just kind of go into a little bit more information about those thresholds. I think, was it yes, on this one.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
if it's a general small business, not one of the social economic categories, the contracting officer can go ahead, and if it's under 250, and set that aside without having to get a waiver from the SBA.
And that's 250,000, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And however, if they're setting it aside for one of the social economic programs, the NMR comes into play at the micro purchase threshold, much lower.
Which is?
I want to say it's 10,000.
Yeah, 10,000.
So yeah, there's a bit of there's a difference between that. I'm not sure why that they provided that the small businesses get more leeway.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, I hope that helped.
No, I think so. It just always helps to clarify in case we have individuals on here that maybe weren't aware of the different thresholds and what they were. Thank you.
And that's interesting too, because if you let them know it's under 250, you don't even need a waiver for this. You can set it aside.
And
if the contracting officer wants to.
we had another question come in. Does the set aside apply to a small business that is not 8A, SC, VOSB, WOSB, HubZone, etc., or only to those subcategories?
It applies to those as well as to a regular small business that does not fall in those socioeconomic categories.
So they can just be a small business. They don't necessarily have to be 8A, service disabled, veteran owned, woman owned, or HubZone.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Well, if there aren't any additional questions, we can go ahead and wrap up early here. But I really appreciate your time today. And again, if you have any questions, Carol's email is in the chat. You can also reach out to me or to Shonda or PTAC. There's a lot of resources out there to assist you. But I hope everyone has a good day. If no one has any questions, then we can go ahead and wrap it up for today.
Okay. And one more thing, this is all on the SBA website, and I recently updated that within the last 2 months. And I'd say it's very informative.
It is, and it's a complicated topic. And yeah, it's a lot of information to take in. And if we have more service providers and suppliers on this particular webinar, then it may not pertain to them exactly. But if we do have manufacturers, distributors on, the information is on the website. Okay, so we got another question. All right, does the non-manufacturer rule apply to GSA vehicles, NASA SOUP, to GIT? I'm not familiar with that one.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, very good. All right. Anybody else? All right. Well,
Okay.
are these slides online? No. We can provide the slide deck to the participants, and Sharon Hopkins, are you able to post them on OUP Tax website?
Yes, Jill, this recording as well as the slides will be posted on the training tab on our website.
Sharon, can you put the link in the chat for people to access them?
I will do that.
Okay.
All right. And while Sharon is working on that, are there any other questions? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. There it is, everybody. There's the link. And as I mentioned before, if any of you have any questions, just reach out to one of us. We'd be happy to help get you in the right direction. All right. Thank you.